let me just start off by saying that Funko Pops right now are worth less than a used condom. Yes, you heard that correctly. Don't adjust your speakers. They're worth less than a condom that has been used, that has been worn, okay? They're ridiculous right now. I can't tell you many times I've walked into like Ross or Burlington or a clearance aisle at any, major retailer like Target or Walmart and seen maybe like 20 to 30 different Funko Pops that are going on sale. And I think at Ross, they're pretty consistently at like $5, sometimes even less. I've seen a lot of the 4-packs as well. I didn't get pictures of every single one of them, but there were a lot of like those Amazon 5-packs or those store exclusive 5-packs. I walked into FYE, and that's a place that you never expect to find Funko Pops on clearance. But same thing, Hot Topic is also following suit. What is this telling us? And I'll be brutally honest with you guys, I don't really collect Funko Pops the way that I used to back in the day. I've really gone away from them. If it comes down to buying an articulated action figure or a Funko Pop, 9 out of 10 times I'm going to go with the articulated figure. I love posing. I love getting action figures into some really cool dynamic poses for the display, and I just don't see a lot of value in Funko Pops when it comes down to it. But I do buy some here and there. I do have like multiple different waves that I'd like to display, whether in box or out of box, but I never buy them with the idea of potentially seeing like future value, which I think is honestly, I think it's one of the main talking points nowadays in the Funko Pop community. I think there was a time when people actually collected them to enjoy them, to display them, to have them there, especially if it was a character or a franchise or a line that they were really in love with. And now I would go as far as to say like 75% of Funko Pop collectors are just looking for future value. They put them in Funko Pop protectors and they hope that in like 2 to 3 years it's worth like 5 times what it's worth, or that the actor or the character has a big giant breakthrough and is now a mainstay in like pop culture. This happens quite often. There are a lot of artists, for example, that have passed away and then their Funko Pops go up in value. I know it's sad to think about, but it is just absolute fact. I mean, it is what it is. Sometimes you'll have a Funko Pop maybe based in a comic book universe, and then that particular character makes a live action appearance, and then that Funko Pop will go up in value along with maybe the first appearance in comic book form or any other action figure. That's just the way that it happens. Sometimes that character gets thrust to the spotlight, and then everything that it touches or any merchandise that was attached to that particular character just goes up in value. And I think that's what most of the collectors do nowadays, quote unquote collectors. They're technically just like long-term resellers, but there are a few people out there that are genuinely interested in the Funko Pop collectible line. But I think as time goes by, we're starting to see it kind of dwindle a little bit, and a lot of people may wonder why. In my personal opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with oversaturating the market. It feels like any show, any animated series, any anime, any celebrity, any athlete, heck, any president will get a Funko Pop nowadays. Everybody gets a Funko Pop. If you don't have one, that means you're an absolute nobody. It's okay, don't cry. And I think that has really led to a decline in the amount of people that find it interesting, even though you do kind of reach more people that way, because there are people that maybe are just into like Funko or just into horror franchises. There's some people that are into comedy. There are some people that are into just different things. You do reach more people, but at the same time, you are hoping that a lot of these people continue to be a part of the loyal fan base, and more often than not, that does not happen. In most cases, people just jump in, get exactly what it is that they want, maybe a couple of waves from a franchise or some source material that they absolutely love. Maybe it's based on their favorite show or their favorite book or whatever the case may be, and then they jump out and never collect Funko Pops again. There are a few of those that collect every single thing that comes out from Funko, but clearly that audience has definitely been diminishing over the past few years. Two of the biggest factors, at least in my personal opinion, has to be the oversaturation of the market, and then those really weird, obscure store exclusives. And in these cases, sometimes it's just like a variation of color or it's just the exact same Funko Pop, the exact same molding. Everything is the exact same thing, except maybe they'll have like a chrome version, or maybe one that's like a black and white sketch variant, or maybe they'll have like a horror pop that is just a regular version, and then like an exclusive one that has a blood splatter all over it. And you know how I criticize McFarlane for using that ugly translucent blue plastic as like a store exclusive for some of his figures? Well, Funko does the exact same thing. It's the exact same figure, just in translucent plastic, the exact same pose. And ultimately, I think that is another big reason for why a lot of consumers have been going away from Funko recently. They've even released a little subline of do-it-yourself Funko Pops, where you get a Funko Pop that is essentially all gray plastic resin and you paint it yourself. Yes, that's an actual idea that Funko had, which, look, in essence, or I guess in theory, it is a decent idea, but ultimately the people that collect Funko Pop are not going in there looking to paint a Funko Pop themselves. For the most part, as I've said, they like the idea of their Funko Pops gaining value. Whether Funko Pop collectors admit it or not, I think that's probably the number one motivator for them picking up pops. And the do-it-yourself Funko Pop makes absolutely no sense in my personal opinion. You're essentially doing like half the job that Funko's supposed to be doing, and they still charge the same amount. It's still, you know, regular retail. And look, I get it, sometimes you are going to have to reuse a lot of these body molds. We see it a lot from all the OMs, whether it's action figures, statues, any type of collectible. You know that they're going to reuse body molds. It's just a part of the game. But as I've always said, do it smartly. Don't just give us the exact same Funko Pop in like a random chrome color. Actually put some effort into it. You know, sometimes you get, for example, Chase Funko Pops that have some slight little differences, like maybe the eyes are glowing and then the original one, the eyes are not glowing, or sometimes they'll have a tiny little difference in paint, things of that nature. Maybe one of them has like a more toned down matte color to their outfit, whereas in the original one is a little bit more bright. So things of that nature, you know, they add a little bit more value to your overall display, and at least you're getting like semi different or variations of the same Funko Pop without really feeling like the OM is like really taking advantage of you. Not to mention, it feels like every single convention, every single little tiny event on planet Earth has to have like a Funko Pop exclusive attached to it. And in reality, in most cases, they're not even exclusive to the event. Like, yes, they are being sold and shopped around at the event, but there are still different websites carrying these Funko Pops. So you don't actually have to be at the event to actually get the pop in most cases. And again, it just adds to the frustration of the community. And I think that's just another big reason for why people are just going away from Funko Pops, why you're able to buy them now for, you know, $2, $3, $4, $5. I've even seen some of the store exclusive deluxe versions of Funko Pops, which usually tend to go up in price. They've actually been on sale pretty consistently throughout the last couple of years. Now, I will say not all of it is bad. The little pop moments or the small little keychain Funko Pops, for example, all of those I think have helped the company move forward and try to be a little bit more innovative. The Funko Pop t-shirt with the pop itself actually appeared to sell pretty well. I mean, not astronomically high sales across the board, but for the most part, they do seem to sell pretty consistently. But look, guys, at the end of the day, let's be brutally honest here. A lot of collectors may have just outgrown the Funko Pop line. It's not the end of the world. Sometimes we just want something bigger, something better. And I think a lot of the Funko Pop collectors have moved on to maybe bigger things. For example, articulated figures. I think that's something that's pretty consistent. I count myself in that group. I do dabble here and there with the Funko Pop line, very rarely, but I do pick up, you know, Funko Pops that resonate with me from time to time. But for the most part, I gravitate more towards articulated action figures, some statues here and there, but for the most part, action figures. But I do see a lot of people that maybe moved on to collecting shoes, for example. That's a really big hobby here locally and across the US. That's another hobby that maybe people moved on from. I've seen a lot of Funko Pop collectors also move on to comic books. That's kind of trending recently. A lot of people want to buy key comic books, you know, comic books that have first appearances of of really big characters, or there are those people that just collect ratio variants, and obviously the higher the ratio, the more difficult it is to find that particular comic book and the more value it will have long term. And as I said earlier, not everything is bad with Funko Pop. Like, they have done some things to kind of elaborate and branch out and do things a little bit differently. They're not sticking to the norm. They have done, for example, Funko Pops that are based on Disneyland rides. They do have the deluxe Funko Pops, the 10-inch versions, as well as the smaller, like 6 to 7-inch Funko Pops, usually either one character being, pretty large, or it's a little set or a little movie moment. I believe there's also a small little diecast line that they've been launching here and there, a little bit more expensive than your regular retail Funko Pop, but at least that's them diversifying just a little bit more. I have noticed a lot more of their Funko Pops also come with those little plastic clear stands. They're not removable, but they're there just to add a little bit more presence to each Funko Pop, especially if it's a character that is like in mid-flight, or for example Spider-Man, which I'm very familiar with. A lot of their Funko Pops are like mid-swing, so he's swinging with his webs, and that little plastic stand really helps the Funko Pop kind of elevate to another level. We have also seen those vehicle Funko Pops from time to time. I know they did one for like the Batmobile, for example. They also did one that was the Wayne Manor, if I'm not mistaken. I know they've also done album cover Funko Pops as well as movie posters. So they continue to kind of expand and give the consumer a little bit more, right? It's not just the same generic poses. It's not just a Funko Pop in an upright position and that's it. They're trying to add a little bit more value. They're trying to expand, give your display a little bit of life, and I think that's good. That's a step in the right direction. I know they even had like band set Funko Pops where it was like the entire set was like a stage, and then I think they had like U2 and a couple of other really cool nostalgic old school bands from like the 80s and 90s. They've had other like 4 to 5 packs which usually include an entire wave. Like if you don't want to go out there and look for each individual Funko Pop and your ideas to just display them all together, whether that's Disney or some Disney characters, or whether it's Marvel, they at least give you that option. So as I said before, it's not all bad. This isn't like the worst situation ever. I do believe that Funko Pop, or Funko as a whole, has tried to do things a little bit different and diversify their portfolio, but at the end of the day, clearly the consumers are speaking with their wallet and they're choosing to just not buy as many. What's the solution? Like, I don't know. I'm not an expert here, but I will say from my point of view, I would just not flood the entire market with Funko Pops consistently. I would say start doing more limited releases. That seems to be something that draws a lot of Funko Pop collectors out of the woodwork. Sometimes maybe you'll have them limited to a few thousand pieces. Continue with your store exclusive stuff, but like I said, make them a little bit more limited, a little bit more coveted. It's also important to stay on top of trends without being too trendy, because a lot of these shows or a meme or a particular TV personality might be really famous for like a month or two. Everybody wants a piece of them. Everybody wants to interview that particular person or celebrity, and then within like 2 to 3 months, everybody forgets about them. And usually that's around the time when Funko Pop starts pushing out some of their Funko Pop releases. Maybe a show was really hot during the summer, and then maybe if they're off for a year and then there's no release, that's usually when Funko again starts to release some of their pops. A lot of people have lost interest. They maybe have moved on to something else. So it's just about being a little bit more cautious, because as I've said, I know for the most part we used to see a lot of these Funko Pop clearance deals pretty consistently throughout the year, but not to this extent where there's literally like just entire shelves filled with maybe 20 to 30 different Funko Pops, all ranging from like $3 to like $6 to $7. It's absolutely ridiculous. So hopefully they're able to get back on track. Honestly, like I said, I'm not really the biggest Funko Pop collector nowadays. I've definitely toned down I'm way more selective. I buy, one here and there every couple of months if it really speaks to me, but it definitely hurts my soul. It hurts my insides to see a big, huge hobby like collecting Funko Pops falling the way that it has. But as always, this is just my personal opinion, my personal perspective. I'm very curious to see what you guys have to say. Have you guys had the same experience recently at your discount stores? Are you guys running into a lot of clearance Funko Pops, or is that just here for me locally? Is that a problem here in the area? Very curious to see what you guys have to say. What do you guys think that Funko Pop should do to try to up their sales? How do they compete? Let me know down below in the comment section. Maybe they go to make articulated figures, maybe like expand their arsenal even a little bit more. Could you imagine that? Like 1/12 scale Funko Pop action figures? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for supporting. If you guys enjoy this type of content, make sure to stay tuned because we do upload pretty consistently. Stay safe out there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.